Hey everyone, welcome back to the So Wizard Podcast rundown of AFI's 100 Years, 100 Movies, 10th Anniversary Edition. Before we get started, please remember to subscribe to our channel. It really helps us grow our audience. Besides, you aren't going to want to miss this list. Number 97 on the list is one of the most widely known and seemingly loved sci-fi movies of all time, 1982's Blade Runner. This is one that I fully expected I'd be drooling over when I first saw it. That was not the case. The one and only time I saw this was around 2005, for this list, that is. I was bored to tears and couldn't figure out why it was popular. I shoved it to the back of my mind and moved on. I feel something to akin of a sense of shame in being a science fiction fan and not liking Blade Runner. When it came up on AFI's list, I decided to jump back in and, hopefully, see it with fresh eyes. Searching through all 87 versions of this movie, I went with Blade Runner Final Cut. It was on HBO Max, so it was accessible. Not as accessible as it should be, since HBO Max is still in a standoff with Roku and Amazon, but that's a whole other thing. Rewatching the movie, I was still bored. It clocks in right around 2 hours, but I checked the clock a dozen times and took 3 breaks. That's never a good sign. Even scarier is when I learned that the original cut of the movie was 4 hours. Even the crew that made the movie said it was overly long and incomprehensible. Despite the actual story being boring and seemingly without purpose, the Ridley Scott classic does have a lot to offer. Harrison Ford does a great job for one. He became such an icon between Han Solo and Indiana Jones that it's easy to forget he was a legit great actor. The main villain of the piece, though I'm still not sure why we have to harbor prejudice against replicants, it seems like humans made them, mistreated them from the start, but whatever. Keep going off on tangents here, sorry. The main villain, played by Rutger Hauer, also did a great job. I just wish there was more substance and purpose beyond moving the plot forward to his role. Hauer elevated the movie so much he even improvised the line, "All those moments will be lost in time, like tears in rain." This is an amazing line and by far the standout line of the movie. I'll also say that the effects and world building are phenomenal, almost 40 years later. Of course you can see the seams, but it's undeniable that Scott's vision for this movie has influenced science fiction ever since. Blade Runner is based on a Philip K. Dick novel. Like most of Philip K. Dick's adaptations, Blade Runner was a better idea than it was in execution. He's another topic I feel tarnishes my geek cred because I just can't fully embrace his work. I like a lot of it in theory, but the writing style and execution always leaves me wanting. Anyway, the movie is based on the story Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, and the title Blade Runner was taken from an entirely separate novel by Alan E. Nourse. While changing the title was probably a good idea, I never quite grasped why the android hunters were called Blade Runners in the first place. Changing the title to what we would consider the source material may seem confusing on paper, but it doesn't really matter since not much of the Electric Sheep story found its way to the screen. Ridley Scott didn't even bother finishing the novel before diving into the film. Scott said that the novel was too difficult to get into. I'm right there with you, buddy. When Blade Runner hit theaters in 1982, it didn't quite live up to the studio's expectations. With an estimated budget of $28 million, it only grossed $6 million opening weekend. It will go on to gross $32 million domestic and $41 million worldwide, so it wasn't a loss, but wasn't exactly a home run either. Critics seem to suggest this is because of the dark tone of the movie, something audiences apparently weren't ready for at the time. It was nominated for Best Art Direction and Best Effects at the Academy Awards that year. Very well earned despite my personal feelings on the overall movie. Blade Runner found its place in pop culture after its theatrical run as a cult classic. The look of the movie has a lot to do with this. The bleak look of the future depicts a gross and terrible Los Angeles that is beautifully created for the big screen. The futuristic, 2019, vision didn't exactly come true, but we were able to logically trace the 1982 world to the future that went a long way. Star Wars is a fantasy in its distant galaxy, and Star Trek is so far idealized future that it's not relatable to people. Blade Runner was packed with real-world languages in a familiar city and stuffed, probably too much so, with real companies. Hello product placement. A good chunk of the ads in the movies are for companies that didn't make it to 2019, but the familiarity is still there. I made a glib comment about why we were supposed to hate the replicants early in this video. To get ahead of things and to ward off at least some of your hateful messages, I will acknowledge that that's part of the point of the movie. I get that the deeper concepts of what defines identity, life, consciousness, and all the usual AI tropes are present. These were not such well-traveled tropes in the early 1980s, I just wish the movie did a better job exploring those angles. My opinion on this movie aside, the influence it had on science fiction as a genre for the last 4 decades is undeniable. The design of the movie is gorgeous. For those reasons, it's clear why Blade Runner, a movie that received a lukewarm response in its theatrical debut, made it to the American Film Institute's 100 Best Movies. Well, that was Blade Runner, AFI's number 7 on the 10th anniversary list of AFI's 100 Years, 100 Movies. Make sure you come back next Friday for number 96, Do the Right Thing. Thanks for watching. Please remember to subscribe to our channel for more. Also, be sure to listen to So Wizard Podcast wherever you get your podcasts. So Wizard Podcast can be found on Patreon, where for as little as $1 a month, you get multiple bonus shows. Check out SoWizardPodcast.com for reviews, recommendations, all new merchandise, and more. We love hearing feedback, so leave something in the comments or drop us a line on social media. All of our accounts can be found after it. We love hearing feedback, so leave something in the comments or drop us a line on social media. All the accounts can be found after the show.